I explained the 7 spiritual equations from a scientific perspective, and now I'd like to explain it from a spiritual perspective. And to do that, I'm going to have to explain who God is and their language that they use and who their name is. It's actually really simple. Go ahead and look at the equation video and just so you can understand all the equations and stuff, and then watch this video, basically. But you got to understand who God is, you know? They're an element of eternal consciousness. You can take out the word element and just say eternal consciousness, you know? If you don't want to say element or being, you know, or whatever. But basically, God has been the same forever, and they've existed for eternity, which is forever, you know? Before humans existed, before the earth existed, before things needed for survival existed, you know? Like human characteristics needed for survival. God existed before that, you know? And human words, God existed before human words. Human writing, God existed before human writing. And the Word of God existed before, you know, this reality existed. And it's actually really simple. As an element of eternal consciousness, their language is consciousness. That might be hard to understand because there's no words or whatever, but God existed forever in eternity as an element of consciousness. So their words would be conscious thought. Conscious thought is their language. And to say their name existed for eternity. They've always had a name. Their name existed before human words and human writings. Their name is the complete thought of who they are in the form of a conscious thought. And to gain this conscious thought is really simple. You see, everything God created, they placed conscious understandings in them, because that's their language, you know? The Word of God is conscious understandings. Such as this river, you observe this river of water, you gain a conscious understanding, you know what I mean? This stone, you gain the stone, you get a conscious understanding. Same with everything that exists, you know what I mean? Everything God created, they put a conscious understanding in it. And they just so happen to create our minds, so when we use our mind to observe their creations, we gain a conscious understanding, which is actually their words, you know? And this is an instinctive process that occurs with all life, with, you know, a meat mind like us humans. And the thing is, you know, we observe, we understand, and then we think about stuff, we ask ourselves questions, and then it grows into knowledge, you know, grows into knowledge. This is how all life has been able to thrive and survive, you know, throughout time. That's how our ancestors survived. They read from the Word of God instinctively, you know, and of course, you know, figured some stuff out, how to live your life, philosophy, science, all that stuff, all those questions, you know. And the thing is, to say God's name, it's a conscious thought. And once you say this name, I've said their name, you know. I've had that thought. I say their name a lot now. Now that I can do it, I say it a lot because, you know, it's very peaceful. It's like imagine having all the wealth in the world, you know. Imagine being the most wealthy person in the world. Of course, not with money, but spiritually. So I'll tell you what, if you can say God's name, that's the goal. That's basically the goal. You know what I mean? And think of it, I'll throw in a Bible verse here, John 1:1. And John, you know, he wasn't a prophet or nothing like that. When they asked him, you know, who he was like, oh, I'm not a prophet or nothing like that. They're like, who are you? Who are you? He was like, oh, I'm the voice that cries out in the wilderness, you know? So basically he was saying, he was educated in the wilderness. He was educated by the understandings God placed in their creation, you know? And then he learned how to baptize and all that stuff or whatever. But anyways, John 1:1. What is it? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, or something like that. Something like that. I probably said it wrong. But anyway, in the beginning was the Word, you know? What's the beginning? Obviously not eternity, because eternity has no beginning. So the beginning was the creation of this, you know, reality. The heaven and the earth or whatever. So basically, when God created everything, they put the words in it. They put the words in everything they created. So when we observe this stuff, you know, we gain their words, which is, their language is consciousness, so we gain a conscious understanding. And think of it like this, you know. When you gain all the conscious understandings that God placed in their creation, you basically strengthen your mind. You gain an education, an actual education, you know what I mean? that naturally strengthens your mind the way God intended. And this is very powerful because throughout time, many people have walked the instinctive path that leads to God, you know what I mean? We write about them in books. They're in books. They're in our books. But, nobody writes down the instinctive path that leads to this type of knowledge. That's what I did, I'm not a prophet or nothing like that either. I just, knowledge is my thing, like the source of knowledge, the source of those books. That's what I search for, That's what the equations explain. But anyways, yeah. Observe everything God created, gain those precious understandings that they put in their creations, such as an artist would do when they create artwork, gain all these understandings, strengthen your mind naturally, ask these questions like this: who are you, God? Do you exist, God? Stuff like that. And once you came to a conscious understanding of who God is, once you get that conscious understanding in your mind, that thought, of who God is, have that thought. That's their name. That conscious understanding of who God is, that thought, the complete thought, that's their name, you know what I mean? Say it. Say it before you die, say it after you die, you know what I mean? But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to share my wealth with everybody. And yeah, you can't hear me say God's name, because it's a conscious thought. Because, their language is consciousness. And an easy way to explain this is they existed forever by themselves as an element of consciousness, They've been the same. They've had the same language. They've had the same name. And to say their name, what was there in eternity with them? Consciousness. It's a conscious thought of who they are, Oh, and one more thing. When it comes to God, everybody has their own... We're human, We're humans. So when we form a thought of who God is, we're like, oh, God's a human like us, And they say God's a man, a human man or whatever, up in heaven, which is a lie. It's not like it's like a purpose lie. It's a purpose lie. It's just that's human understanding of who God is, You ask a dog who God is, they'll be like, oh, God's a dog like me, Same with any other animal. But you got to get past that. You got to get past that. You got to get deeper. You got to go inward. And you got to understand that. You got to understand certain things like existing forever and being the same forever. They're not going to be a man. They're not going to have eyes. They're going to be able to see without eyes, you know what I mean? They're not going to have a mouth to make words. They're going to be able to make words without a mouth, you know what I mean? For eternity. That's how they've lived, And yeah. The biggest thing is God cannot be a man, because why would God have a penis for eternity? That's a long time. That's basically forever. Before this reality existed, forever existed, and that's a long time, And why would God have a penis or human characteristics needed for survival? They wouldn't. They would not. So just try to understand that, because it's not about what you've been taught, It's not about having faith in things you don't understand. Because I'll tell you what, the Word of God, it's based in understanding. The Word of God is something you can understand, And if you can't understand it, maybe it is the Word of God, But if you can't reach that understanding, it's not the Word of God. You know what I mean? And God is the element of consciousness that exists, Kind of like this element of water that exists, Just exists. But, before water exists, because they created water. They've existed forever as the element of consciousness, Try to understand that so you can say their name. Because, hey, it took me 42 years to say their name. I've asked many questions about God. I've believed in God. I've not believed in God. I've thought God was a man in heaven. And then all kinds of other stuff. I've asked all kinds of questions. I've searched for the truth. And I've gained the understandings they placed in their creation. Their conscious understandings that they placed in their creation. Because you got to understand their language is consciousness. Their language isn't human words. And if you think that God's language is human words, just understand that they've been the exact same for eternity. And human words didn't exist in eternity. You know what I'm saying? So, just you got to come to understand who God is. It's a path in life. You got to gain all these understandings that God created, that they put in their creation. gain all those understandings, ask those questions, and then you too can say God's name, you know? I don't think I have to tell you why that's important. That's very important. That's very important. But in any case, it sucks having all this spiritual wealth, you know, but all to myself. Nobody else is, I'm sure that it's an instinctive path, so, you know, I'm sure there's other humans on this planet that know how to say God's name, you know, but I don't think it's many. Definitely not any of the people that follow the book religions and say God's a human with a penis and speaks human words, you know, and has a human name, you know what I mean? Because, hey, we all pray to the same God. We all got different ideas of who God is and stuff like that, but the truth is what's important. So forget those teachings that you were taught. Well, don't forget them. Just evolve them to the truth. Evolve your teachings to the truth. Because, hey, that book you read, it's been worked by time, you know? So maybe the understandings you're looking for, they're just not there no more, you know? And they're not in that book no more. But they're here in God's creation. And if there's stuff in your book you can't understand, you know, gain the understandings that God put in their creation in the form of conscious thought, which is their language. Gain those understandings, you know? And maybe you can understand the stuff in your book. Because, hey, think of it like this. If you never got close to fire or touched fire, you know, but you knew fire was hot because you read that shit in a book, you know, and you have faith that it's true or whatever. You have faith in the teachings that you were taught or whatever. You will never understand what fire is. You will never understand what fire is until you put your hand on it and you touch it and you're like, oh, that's what hot means. That's what hot means. In any case, gain those understandings that God gave to all life. It's for us. God gave it for us to have so that we could, survive and thrive in this reality they created with their divine wisdom that they placed in their creation that we instinctively gain in the form of conscious understandings, which is their language. In any case, gain all those understandings, live the right life, you know, have respect for all life. Even the people you think are dumb as shit, respect them too, you know? Because God willed them in existence just like you, you know? In any case, learn to say God's name, and you will gain it's basically the highest level of spiritual wealth a human can obtain. Saying God's name. It's a conscious thought of who they are. A complete conscious thought of who they are. And yeah, you have to kind of slip into the realm of eternity when you're thinking of their name, you know? But hey, it's worth it. Should be your goal in life to say God's name. So do it.